We have an amazing speaker tonight, Gil Penchina. I've interviewed him for Lifograph TV a while ago, and his stories are just amazing. So I'm like, wow, wouldn't it be nice if I invite him to do an event and invite other people so they can see his wisdom and they can learn from his advice. So I'm so glad we got it together. His schedule is super busy. On LinkedIn profile, says Gil Penchina, too busy, So that's his description in his profile on LinkedIn, and it's true. So we're very fortunate to have him here tonight. It's a rare event. And Gil, as you probably saw from the event description, he's just amazing, an amazing investor. LinkedIn, PayPal, Indiegogo, Fastly, Wealthfront, eBay. It just goes on and on and on. Combined exits of $25 billion. It's not easy. So we're very, very, happy to have Gil Penchina tonight. And he's also one of the most backed investors on AngelList. He has over 800 investors that are backing his syndicates. And tonight he's going to talk to us about, how to hack AngelList, right? How to optimize AngelList and make it work for you for your fundraising efforts. So without further ado, why don't we give a big round of applause to Gil?
Thank you, Dia. It's great to be here. I really appreciate the invitation, and I have a bit of some canned slides here, but please interrupt me because I've given this presentation a bunch of times, so I'm getting kind of bored with it. So if you have questions, if you see something you think is wrong, help me fix it. So by way of introduction, I generally use my AngelList profile now to sort of explain to people who I am and where I came from. Get out of the way here so you guys can see. I was one of the early folks at eBay, was there for a long time. When I joined eBay, it was about 80 people, and it was like this cool, fun, scrappy startup. And when I left, it had 15,000 people, and I went into the office every day dreaming of ways to quit. In fact, I think I said fire me so many times that I'm surprised they didn't. I left eBay in '06 and met this guy, Jimmy Wales, who had founded Wikipedia. And he's like, I'm going to do another Wikipedia. It's called Wikia. And I was like, well, that sounds like a decent idea. So I took over Wikia and grew it from about 6 people to about 150, and we raised a bunch of money and did all the things good entrepreneurs do. And somewhere around, I'd say about 100 people, I again sort of started getting that itchy, what am I doing here, I don't belong anymore feeling. And so I joke now that like my happiness goes from 100 to 1 as the head count goes from 1 to 100. And somewhere around 150, I replaced myself and brought in someone who sort of likes growing big companies, and I went off to do the next one. Got a friend of mine, and he and I started Fastly, which I get to wear all their free t-shirts and jackets now. And Fastly is the new Akamai. It speeds up websites, it speeds up APIs, it's a developer tool. And funny enough, Fastly is now at about 150 people. And start wondering what else I should be doing. As an angel, I also invested in a lot of really, really bad companies that I desperately try to forget. My favorite being Internet Shock Jocks on the radio in '99, back when no one could actually listen to internet audio because we were all on dial-up modems. And then, good investors remember the good ones. They talk about LinkedIn and PayPal and eBay and all those good ones. But for every good one, there was a ton of really, really bad ideas that I look back and have no idea why I invested in them. So that's sort of a bit about me. And this strange thing happened to me about 2 years ago, two and a half years ago. So I'm up late at night trying to figure out what to do. I'd taken time off from Wikia. I wasn't sure what to do yet. And at like 2 in the morning, I have this great idea. Awesome idea. I'm going to start this B2B payments company. It's going to help businesses pay all other businesses. It's going to be all API driven. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be big data and payments and like more buzzwords than I can put into one sentence. And so 2 in the morning, I go online on the AngelList, and I don't have a name for it yet, so I just call it NewCo. And I don't have a logo, so I found this awesome photo of a stealth submarine. And I know that investors want big markets, so I say I'm addressing the $15 trillion business market. For those of you who've read the CIA fact book, they do economic analysis of like the world. The world economy is about 40 trillion. 60% of it is consumer, 40% of it is business, so 40% of 40 billion is like 15 billion, close enough. It's a big market. People should be interested. Product, I'm like, I don't know, it's in stealth, I can't tell you. Shh. Founders, me. And that was about as far as I got. I went and clicked the share button so some of my friends would see it. And I woke up the next morning to comments like, I met with Gil this week, very promising idea. Which I still don't understand. Because apparently he met with me while I was sleeping. I'm in, great team. I'm like, great team? Like, seriously? And so, I'm sort of watching this, and then here's what happens. 450 people email me that day. It was nuts, right? So I'm looking at why. I'm like, maybe because it was stealth. Maybe because crazy people said I was smart. Like, I don't know why. 450 emails in the first 48 hours. I become the top trending startup on AngelList. Naval, who's the founder of AngelList, is calling me and saying, dude, can you make the profile look less embarrassing? Like, it's embarrassing. People are emailing me offers. People want to meet. My favorite one was some seed fund who told me 8 people had told him that he needed to be in on this deal, and no one would tell him what the deal was. And so he flew up from LA to meet with me, and I'm like, so weird. So I've got a couple $1 million circled. I don't have a team. I don't have a product. I don't even have a PowerPoint at this point. I mean, it's bad. Yes, sir.
Will you raise money for me?
Yeah, that's kind of what I do now. That is kind of what I do now. And so, I don't dress like a rock star. I don't look like a rock star. It was very weird temporarily being a rock star, and being very analytic and sort of Silicon Valley based. I started analyzing like, what the fuck did I do? Like what happened here? So somehow I became the hot bar. Why was I the hot bar? Right. First thing that was interesting to me. This is my first AngelList hack. Was it turned out that by not having enough information on the profile, everyone followed my profile in order to find out later what the hell it was going to be. And so hundreds and hundreds of people are following the profile. And because they're following the profile, AngelList sees this as a social signal, much like Facebook likes. And so they go, oh, people are very interested. So I need to get lots of people to follow me. If I get lots of people following me, I become trending. If I become trending, I stay trending. This is exactly the same phenomenon you see with a new game launching on the App Store. They do everything they can to become hot for a day and then slowly kind of trend down. So it turns out the burst of activity in 24 hours is really important. Good app developers, just like good Facebook developers or good people trying to fundraise, you try to concentrate all of the help you can get into one small period of time. So I had friends mentioning me. Today I would give them a snippet and actually tell them what to say instead of saying things like, I already met with him. Repetition creates the Plaxo effect. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember Plaxo, but Plaxo was really annoying. I got all these emails. And finally, by like the 3rd or 4th or 5th email, I was like, fine, I'll join. Just because I'm sick of everyone telling me about this. And I was actually texting with a friend a few minutes ago, and she's like, I need help raising money. And I said, you have to get 6 people to call the investor and tell them how awesome you are, to the point where they're just sick of hearing about how awesome you are. They finally figure it's easier to meet with you than have 6 more people harass them. Repetition is great. Shameless recommendations apparently are pretty good. For whatever reason, I came to the conclusion 2 a.m. actually was a really good time to launch. Again, I tend to be lucky and not smart. But you could see the East Coast people pick it up. And so by the time the West Coast people woke up, I was already hot. And that allowed me to stay hot. And so I got sort of like 4 time zones worth of hot because of that. And then I would respond to people, and being, shameless marketer, every time I'm responding, I'm like, oh, you should follow me, and you should tell your friends about me, because I'm awesome. And so I actually ended up building canned emails for the different type of people that were pinging me on AngelList with different scripts, because I got tired of typing all this shit. And so people ask me, like, who are these people? Like, who is on AngelList? What's my, target market when I'm doing this sort of stuff? And I went back and I looked through the 470 emails, and it was actually remarkably sort of a third in terms of the segmentation of the customers. So about a third, there were about 150 or 160 emails I got that went something like this. Hi, I'm an associate with Draper Kleiner Excel Sequoia Ventures. This sounds awesome. You seem great. Let's go have coffee. For those of you who've spent any time in the VC world, the job of an associate is to waste your time. If you like free coffee, or better yet, like ask for dinner, at least get a nice dinner out of it. Like, their job is to network, their job is to make friends, their job is to learn from you where the industry is going. They have no decision-making authority. They're barely even a filter for anything. They're typically 24-year-old MBAs, and they just like to network because that's like the only thing they know how to do. So I avoid them like the plague. And so I had a canned email that I've written up at this point. I'm fairly well known on Sand Hill Road. I've raised money for a bunch of companies. I've been an angel investor for like 15 years. Like most partnerships, there's at least one partner there who knows me somehow. Maybe not in a good way, but they know me somehow. And so I sent back 160 emails saying, I'm really excited that Sequoia Kleiner Excel Benchmark, Draper Fisher, whatever, is really interested. Let me know when I can meet with a partner. That got me a total of 0 meetings. Actually 0. Right? And like in theory, I'm someone they actually would meet with. But the associates out there just doing shit without even telling the partners. Like the partners didn't give a shit. So, free coffee. In fact, if you do meet with associates, what I recommend doing is having like 3 or 4 meetings ahead of time, keeping an open tab. And then when the associate comes up, they always offer to pay for coffee, and somehow my coffee bills end up being like $300. And they're always very confused, but they're too embarrassed to say no. So big fan of that. About a third of them were seed funds. And this was actually a pretty healthy mix. It ranged from, seed funds in New York and Iceland that knew nothing about financial services B2B tech, to seed funds that only did financial service B2B tech. And so there was sort of a nice mix of sort of totally incompetent and really awesome seed funds responding to it. And when I took a board seat a couple years ago and sort of helped a company do an AngelList deal, one of the things I said is getting on AngelList is a great way to get a bunch of VCs to call you instead of you having to call them. And I'm a big fan of being oversubscribed, right? I don't want, anytime I'm calling you, I've already described myself as weak, right? Anytime you've heard about me and you decide it's worth calling me, I win. So, my joke is the pretty girl always has a boyfriend. Even when she doesn't have a boyfriend, she has a boyfriend. She's never single. So I tried never to be single when I'm fundraising. And then the last third was actual angels. Again, I was sort of surprised. I was like, wow, 150 of these 470 people that emailed me are angels, and it's called AngelList. That's kind of weird. But again, this part makes sense to me because these guys write $500,000, $750,000 checks. They can do seed, they can do early stage. Most of these guys, they're now writing $5 and $10 million checks. They don't want to write $1 million check. They're just not in that business anymore. So that's why I find the associates on AngelList just so annoying, is that they're actually going out of their way to waste our time. In the angel group, again, it sort of broke down about a third. There were 40 or 50 angels that honestly had deep fintech, B2B, developer-centric experience. I had a lot of great conversations. There were about a third that were new. I was having a long email exchange with a young private wealth manager at UBS in Chicago. And I was, telling him, like, look, dude, you're like 24, and angel investing is very, very risky, and you're most likely going to lose all your money, and this is a really bad idea, and you shouldn't do it. And he writes me back a note, and he says, I budgeted losing $10,000, and I'm only going to invest $1,000 with you, and like, I want to get in the game, I want to learn, I want to make the mistakes. And I was like, okay, like, you're still an idiot, but like you've thought through it. Like your goal is learning and not necessarily, oh my God, I'm going to make $100,000 off my. Like you seem to have been educated and thoughtful, and I still think it's a bad idea. But like, yes, I would be willing to take your money. And then there was the last third, my favorite, the scary dumb money. And there's always dumb money. There's always crazy people. And when I'm out fundraising, at the end of the day, money's money. Like, I'm going to take anyone's money until I have too much. And when I have too much, that's when I start figuring out who. But until I have too much money, I'll take anybody's money, because money beats no money. So, early on in that morning, when I was just getting through the first 20 or 30 emails, I get an email from some guy in the Midwest who runs like a chain of dentists, some things, I don't even know what you call them, stores, dentist practices. And he's like, I'm very interested, I want to invest. And I look at his AngelList practice, I'm like, Midwest dentist. No. No, just, invest in the stock market. So I send him back a note, and I'm actually much more polite on email than I am in person. And so I say something like, I'm really honored that you would consider investing in me, but looking at your profile, it appears to me that this is really not a good fit for you, and so, respectfully, I have to decline. Which gets me 5 minutes later a one-line email back. What is your mailing address? I'm thinking letter bomb, bag of shit. I mean, I don't know, something mean. But I'm pretty busy because I'm like cranking through my 450 emails, and I'm kind of brusque at this point because my respectful email is canned and I'm just copying and pasting it. So I write it back, why? And like 2 minutes later it comes back. I have a check for $100,000 sitting on my desk, and I want to know where to mail it. This guy is for sure suing me when anything goes wrong. So like, if I need money, I'll take it. But if I don't need it, he's the first guy out. Like, that's actually crazy. I mean, you saw the profile. There's nothing on there. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know anything. Like, it's crazy. And there is a little bit of that on AngelList. I think they've been doing a better job of sort of trying to educate people that you shouldn't put $100,000 into one thing. You should put $100,000 into 100 things. Naval and the team have really done a nice job doing that. But there's still some people out there that, if you can create the right type of hype and sort of herd mentality, people stop thinking and they just write checks, which is lovely. So, people then ask me, well, what would you do differently? Like, if you actually knew all this shit ahead of time, what would you do? And I said, well, the first thing I would do is I'd have all the investors and all my friends and all my advisors type out the same 140-character AngelList Twitter and Facebook post at the same time. My email's on the last page. I'll send you the deck if you want it, so you have to take photos. I want everyone talking about me on the same day. I want to create that Facebook zeitgeist of that blue and black dress. It was not white and gold. It's blue and, right? Those sort of things are really cool if you can get them to happen. Then it turns out there's a page on AngelList. It's one of the tab things, or it's somewhere in the menu now, called People. And you go there and you see the people that have the most followers on AngelList.
That's you.
It actually isn't. I don't think I'm even in the top 20, because there's people like Reid Hoffman and Josh Koppelman and partners at Sequoia and all kinds of cool people. So, and what I tell people is I say, look, you know, I see 1,000 decks a month, and my team does 1, 2, 3, 4 investments a month. So asking us for money is hard. Asking me to copy and paste 140 characters into the stupid AngelList little form thing, it's a lot easier. It makes me feel good about myself because I'm doing something for a fellow entrepreneur. Like, how do you say no to that? No, I can't write a little something about you. Like, that doesn't cost me anything and takes like 12 seconds. So I you know, much like, you know, when I'm looking for a job, I do a lot of informational interviewing because it's a way to get people on my side and make them feel invested in me. I find ways to try to get these people to do little things for me. And if I can get them to do a little thing, maybe later on they'll do a bigger thing. You know, there's the YC's having their demo day next week. There's always a hockey stick curve. Every startup has a hockey stick curve, even if it's just like how much money we're losing. Like, it's, something is going up and to the right. And even better, don't put numbers on it, because then people have to follow you or message you to find out what the hell the numbers are, and that gets you social, you know, data in AngelList. Everyone loves large numbers or percentages. I saw what was it? It was a fundraising site, and one of the stats was 40% month-over-month growth. And I was like, dude, that's pretty good. So I pinged one of the investors. The investor introduces me to the entrepreneur. I said, hey, this is great. Like, can I see some trend data? He says, no. I said, why not? He goes, we're oversubscribed. I'm like, of course you are. Everyone's oversubscribed. Fuck you. Like, I can't invest without looking at some data. He sends me the wrong data. He sends me another wrong data. And finally, I'm like, dude, where's the 40% month-over-month data? And he grew 40% month-over-month for 1 month, 2 months ago. But he got me. Right? Get people to follow you, say something provocative, be interesting. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to be interesting, but apparently I fake it well. So I was helping another startup that I was an investor in, and he's like, this is all great, but like no one reads, and I don't understand what the fuck you're talking about. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll go take screenshots of everything you need to do and send it to you. And so again, like, this will be in the deck if you want it. But I was like, tell people to follow you. Here's the follow button. And then tell them to comment on how awesome you are. And then go to the share thing. And then update their status and say they're investing. And so directly went and did all this, and all the advisors and investors and friends of Anthony did this, and they immediately went to #1 on trending, and were super hot for like 12 hours. So, you know, but it was funny because when I tried this earlier with a different startup, I would tell, like, I literally just had an email. It was like, follow them and share them and comment. And I would get people calling me 2 days after the 1 hour when they were supposed to do it at 2 a.m. on Monday. They'd call me on Wednesday and be like, I couldn't find the follow button. I'm like, really? Like, I have to fucking hold your hand? Okay, fine. So I actually went through, like, literally, I'm going to hold your hand. Like, do I have to push the buttons for you? Like, what do I have to do? And again, like, most people don't read. Most people aren't as busy with your startup as you are. So, you know, I guess it's not surprising. But, like, I'll do whatever it takes to get people to do what I need done. Today, I would use a syndicate. And I copied and pasted a really old version of the site. There's a tab called Syndicates, and you can see all the crazy people who are running them, and you can see how much money they theoretically have access to. And people then go like, okay, what's a syndicate? Like, how does that work? So I draw pretty pictures, because I talk to a lot of people who don't use the internet. And I tell them there's all these angels out there, but what really matters is this super angel guy or girl who takes all their money and hands it to these crazy scientists making some cool technology website-y thing. And they go, what's a super angel? And I say, you know, I don't know. It's not like a thing. There's not like a title. I don't get to put it on my business card. But there's this social phenomenon that I experience when I raise money, which is that I go and talk to people, and they nod, and they go away, and more people, and no one cares. And then they find out Dave Marin's investing, and Dave is one of the early Facebook product managers and is considered super smart. And everyone's like, oh, Dave Marin's investing. Okay, I'm in. Like, I'm in. Like, no more questions, no more like, why is this going to work? Like, literally, there's this herd behavior that happens when a single person deemed to be an influencer says yes. And I see this where it's like, oh, Battery's investing or Sequoia's investing. Okay, I'm in. Like, I don't know how to spell the company, but Sequoia's in. I'm in. It's some amount of validation. It's some amount of someone else is smarter than I am, and so I trust them. It's some amount of once something's hot, it stays hot. It's not entirely clear to me why humans herd this way, but they do. And so AngelList has basically taken an existing human behavior and automated it, much the way LinkedIn took an existing human behavior of introducing people and automated it. And that's what makes these syndicates so powerful. So people follow me, much like a Twitter follower follows me, but here they follow me for money. And they say, Gil, you seem really smart. If you invest in something, I will put $1,000 in it, or 10,000, or 100,000. Which is kind of neat. The lead, me, or some other syndicate lead, makes the investment decision. AngelList then goes out and talks about it and promotes it. They create this thing called an LLC, basically a little company. They collect all the checks from all the angels, and they write the startup a single check. So what's cool for me, the founder, is, you know, if a friend of mine wants to put $1,000 into a deal, it's going to cost me $1,000 in legal fees to get their name on the cap table, signature blocks and cap tables and all these other things. Like, I get like 9 signature pages for every deal, and the lawyers make, you know, thousands on this. Here, it all just goes in through the software, and the startup gets one check from one entity. It's like a safe entity. They're run by a professional, not me, because I'm an idiot. You would never trust me with this stuff. And then the syndicate lead actually gets a carry. They get a percentage of the upside. So the motivation for me and others like Jason Calacanis and Tim Ferriss and others is, instead of writing a $25,000 check, I can now write a $100,000 check, and I get some of the upside on the other 75 grand. The nice thing from an alignment standpoint is there are no management fees, there's no other money. So I only make money if everyone makes money, and I lose my money along with everyone else. You know, VCs, you know, get $750,000 a year to lose your money for you. So, you know, that seems to keep the alignment of interests relatively healthy. It's still not perfect, but, you know, it's at least better. So the syndicate fills in a portion of all the round with the backers. You end up on the homepage. You become hot because everyone's following you. There's this social proof of like, Gil is following you. I like syndicates because it turns out I have now 7 of the top 25. These are some of the ones I run. At last count, I'm effectively running 18 venture funds on AngelList simultaneously, which is really weird. And I recruit partners to manage them. So I have 2 guys that help me with the SaaS fund, and 2 guys that help me with the Bitcoin fund, and someone helps me with ad tech, and someone else helps me with security, and it's sort of super neat, and there's like all this money. And then all these people keep backing me, and the slide's really old because it's now over 2,000, and it was like 1,200 a few months ago. And so I started having this problem where too many people were backing the deals, and because of the federal crowdfunding law, you can only allow 99 people into every deal. And so I would launch this syndicate for some company, and I would, like, my email box would once again explode. Only this time it would explode with, why didn't I get in the deal? How do I get in the next deal? I don't understand what happened. You know, what the fuck? I said I was backing you. Like, why aren't you letting me in? Like, you're a jerk. And I don't really like being a jerk. So I started working on that, and we built a software platform. We ended up changing the name. It's called Angel Mob now. And when I went out to these 2,000 people, and I said, you know, you're right. I don't have an efficient way to allocate who I should let in and who I shouldn't. But my fundamental belief as an entrepreneur is that I want to let people invest who actually help, right? So we're going to build a software platform that allows you to do tasks to help our startups. We're going to quantitatively measure how much you help, and we're going to give you effectively a currency that you can then spend to get access to the best deals. And so the people who do the most to help will actually get into the good deals, and the people who just sit around on their ass and watch TV will not. And then you're not mad at me, you can be mad at TV for like not letting you in the deal. So we started with like super dumb product, which is startup has something they want people to share. Please post it on Facebook. And we'd measure how many clicks people delivered for the startup. And so we have startups doing coupons and product announcements and blog posts and job postings and all kinds of things. And I was like, oh, job postings. So we actually created a separate software element that now flows into this, which is we pull in companies' job postings and we give people points for suggesting a LinkedIn URL of a candidate along with a text field for why that would be a good candidate. And so now, like, you wake up in the morning after putting in a job posting and you get a bunch of recommendations from people like us for jobs, you know, you actually have. And I remember I was trying to get into this very competitive deal at one point, and I was talking to the CEO. I said, look, let me tell you what it's like with regular investors. With regular investors, they email you resumes of people they know for jobs you don't have. And you take coffee meetings with people you don't want to meet with because you don't want to insult your investors. Like, this happened to me all the time when I was running a company. Like, hey, so-and-so would be great for your VP of product. Yeah, I kind of like my VP of product, but okay. I don't know, maybe there's a message here that, like, I'm an idiot and I should have fired her, but she seems pretty smart. And so I would meet with them. And so I went to the founder and I said, what if, like, people actually sent you job resumes for job postings you had? Wouldn't that be better? So we do stuff like that. And we're basically trying to build out software elements around sharing, sourcing, offering expertise, making introductions, job postings. These are all going to be sort of like Mechanical Turk, little modules where you can do things to help our companies. And it's all very MVP and pretty ugly right now. So, like, I was playing around with the introduce me one. And so I pasted in a LinkedIn URL, and into the software comes, can you help me get in touch with Alex Mittal? And people are responding with how they know Alex. I went to high school with Alex. I live next to Alex. I work at Funders Club. I'm happy to introduce you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm not competing with AngelList directly. It's one of the main features that they're so good at hiring and finding possible.
So the question is, AngelList has job postings. They make a lot of money. Don't they hate you? And the answer is, I actually worried about that. And so I called up Naval, the founder, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I have a lot of features I can build. This is one of them. If this is really annoying, tell me and I'll stop. Because I work with him. I don't really want to be his enemy. I went through the whole PayPal eBay war and the MySpace YouTube war, and, like, it's no fun fighting with someone bigger than you. And so I literally told him, I was like, this is what we're going to do. Like, if it's bad, let me know, and I got other shit I can do. And he says, it's fine, don't worry about it. I'm like, okay, great. And, 6 months from now, he'll be mad, but I have it on, record that he said it was okay. So that's sort of like the end of my canned bullshit. Here's my email if you want a copy of the deck. There's my syndicate URL if you wanted to, I don't know, waste money with me. Yes, sir.
So are you going to go ahead and give the metrics off of what people value they add? Because that's what I did when I started my industry. And that's the piece we need to really make crowdfunding and America's Job Act and any other type of real marketplace driven by data work. You're going to expose those scores.
What people value what at? What people value the equity at?
No. What the actual value investors and advisors and the teams really bring to the company.
Oh, no, I mean, our job is to measure how well we do as investors.
Right.
So we will, AngelList is going to produce reports saying, here's how shitty a job Gil did investing money. Yes. And they will make that public to my investors, and they'll find out. Yeah.
But also, if you have the data about how much the investors bring, you also could say how much the teams bring, how much the partners. We need a credit score for people who build entrepreneurship like every other market.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, so much of success is luck that I actually don't know that I would score the team entirely on that, and it is a bit of a relay race. One person takes over for another. So I think investors need to be scored. I think entrepreneurs ultimately get scored by the company goes public, the company gets bought, or the company fails. And I have a friend, very nice person, and has been at 10 successive failed startups in a row. I've pretty much scored how she's doing. Like, I don't know that I need to shame her in public on her profile.
But it's not about shame, because actually you can be a failed startup if she's more that has nothing to do with the rest of the
Yeah,
values.
you're right, and I have no idea how to do it.
If you have a question, I'm going to come and pass the microphone to you.
Ooh. Getting all fancy here. Sorry about that.
Hi, my name is Kaveh. How, as a startup founder or co-founder, what's the process of making you interested in our startup, so running a syndicate for us?
It's a hard question to answer. I tend to use dating analogies for everything because people understand them. And so I'm like, what are you looking for in a girl? Stuff, lots of, I don't know. And then as soon as I describe it, I end up dating someone who doesn't look anything like that. So the platitude answers are like a wow product that makes me go, Jesus, I didn't know storage backup for consumers could be this easy. Thank you, Dropbox. Right? I've seen 15 consumer storage companies going back to 1997, and they all sucked, and Dropbox just worked. And it was like, no one could believe it actually worked because everything else that had been tried didn't work. So a product that makes people go, wow, a market that sounds really interesting, a major disruption. The iPhone just came out. We're starting iPhone apps. There's the great team one, and then there's traction. And so one thing I will say is in consumer software, in internet, in sort of mobile apps, in anything sort of consumery, don't come to me with PowerPoint because the cost of starting a website, collecting data, and being able to show data is so low. It is so low that if you come with PowerPoint, what you're basically saying is, I used to work at McKinsey and I don't know how to do anything. I'm incapable of doing things without lots of money, which is not what I want to hear. What I want to hear is, we've got an amazing amount done with nothing. We have a whole tribe of people following us, despite the fact that we have nothing. And if you just give us some money, we could hire all of them to do more shit for us. Look how much we've gotten accomplished. That's harder to do in hardware. Until recently, Indiegogo and Kickstarter have now made that capital efficient, and so people sell hardware they don't have. The blue, what was it? What was the suitcase? Anyone remember the blue suitcase that just came out on Indiegogo? Blue Smart, yes. $2 million selling luggage. I wouldn't have looked at it on PowerPoint because it was luggage, but I'm like, you sold $2 million, you don't even have luggage. That's pretty impressive. And they're actually, I think, graduating from YC now on Monday. So you look for validation, you look for data, you look for something. You want to start a semiconductor company, we're going to have to give you money before you do anything. It's just too hard. But in most of the areas I invest in, Bitcoin and SaaS and consumer and Internet of Things, you get an amazing amount done for nothing. And honestly, the tenacity and the drive and the scrappiness and the evangelism are such an important part of the shit we do. And it's shit. Most of entrepreneurship is shit. It's hard and it's ugly and it's painful and it's stressful, and people quit and screw you all the time because you were depending on them. It's hard. And so you're looking for people that can just bend reality, who can make shit happen despite themselves, and Pied Pipers of the world.
We have another question here.
Gil, what do you think the impact is going to be of the Jobs Act when it fully goes into effect, assuming that happens at the end of the year? You have people that don't have to be qualified investors that can invest. That seems like it would completely blow this up. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so the Jobs Act was, just so people understand, the Jobs Act was passed, but the regulatory framework from the agencies is under comment right now, and so you can actually read their current thinking on it, and it's actually not bad. So accredited investors, people who have a bunch of money, are allowed to invest in startups through AngelList. You have to have $300,000 a year in income, or $1 million in assets, I think. I'm not a lawyer. And if you do that, 99 of you can blow all of your money in a startup, and it's okay. And the thesis basically is you're rich, you're high income, it's your problem. The government doesn't need to protect you from you being stupid. You should not put all of your money into startups. It would be dumb. But the government's decided that you're smart enough at that point that, if that's what you want to do with your life, so be it. The notion of the remainder of the crowdfunding act is to allow people who really shouldn't put too much of their money in to have a very small participation. And so they're talking about rules like no more than 5 or 2% of your net worth can be in this asset class, and you need to somehow document that. And so the argument is like, look, if you want to take 1% of your bank account and put it in startups, like, who cares? And we can let lots of people do that because that feels relatively safe. I think it'll be great in some ways. It's going to enable the Indiegogos and the Kickstarters of the world to crowdfund money for suitcase companies so that it's not just rich people that invest in suitcase companies, it'll be everyone. I also think this is the land of P.T. Barnum. We invented snake oil sales. There's going to be a bunch of not good things that happen. And, I'm always reminded of the fact that my entire career, I've been successful because of this really crazy idea that people are basically good. That most of us here in the room are trustworthy. That, no one here is going out and going to machine gun people tonight or steal my wallet when I go home. And when you read the newspaper, it makes you not believe that. Like when you watch TV, it makes you not believe that. But, I have data on this, right? So I was at eBay in the early days, before payments were possible on the internet. When you would mail someone a check, you would mail a stranger a check, they would cash the check, and then they would send you a Beanie Baby or a gold coin or some other weird thing. And no one thought that was possible. Everyone was like, it's going to be fraud, and it'll never work, and these like crooks. And it just worked over and over and over and over and over again. And we would measure fraud in basis points, in parts per million, right? Yes. And so what we found actually is there's a very small number of people that are truly bad, like Russian criminals and murderers, and they do exist. But like 99.99% of people are good. And so my belief is there will be some horrible, horrible press stories about crowdfunding and some idiot like raising a bunch of money for nothing and running off to the Cayman Islands. And the press will like jump all over it and tell us we're all idiots and try to get the law changed. And 99.9% of people will do perfectly normal things like invest in weird startups that may or may not work with $50. And so I'm a big fan of it. I think it's ultimately about having controls and process and having cops that pick out the bad guys. And that's why you should do it on platforms like AngelList or Indiegogo or one of these other ones where they're actually looking for the bad guys instead of us having to do it. And sorry, you triggered a funny side story, which is I was at the Harvard Business School conference on internet something back in like 99 or 2000 when eBay had just gone public. And I was talking about what we did and the trust and people mailed checks. And during the Q&A, one of the Harvard Business School students stands up and he says, I'm going to go home tonight and I'm going to sell 10 plasma screen TVs on eBay and I'm going to collect the checks and cash them and then I'm just going to laugh. Like, you guys are screwed. This is like fraud central. I'm going to make millions. What do you think about that? And I sort of sat there for a second trying to figure out just how big an asshole I wanted to be. And I was like, yeah, okay, fine. And I looked at him and I said, one of the things you'll learn when you leave Harvard Business School is that everyone else in the world is trustworthy. And it's true, like, this room is full of smart people who can find loopholes. But it turns out people who can find loopholes can generally find better employment than constantly exploiting loopholes. And the few that don't work at hedge funds. So, I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to empower a lot of bad decisions and a lot of good decisions, and so does the stock market.
Everyone in Europe is looking at the Bay Area in terms of tech. Is anyone in the Bay Area looking back to Europe?
How do you spell that? Not a ton, to be honest. I mean, Skype came out of Europe. There've been a handful. Klarna in financial services is really apparently killing it. There are some VCs who are, venturing over to invest in sort of later stage stuff. I hear the Berlin startup scene is getting pretty good. People tell me London's good, but the shit I see out of London seems to still be shit. And those are the best two cities right now in London. I'm sorry, in Europe, except for mobile games, which apparently all come from Finland. I don't know why. Like, they all come from Finland. There's like $3 billion game companies in Finland. I think they have nothing else to do because it's cold all the time. So they all play games and they all make games and they hide inside in their saunas and drink vodka. Not a ton. And most of my friends in Europe are pretty bummed out about it. And, that said, there are, at last count, 50 incubators in Europe trying to crank these things out. There's a couple hundred in the US. But what I find in Europe is the risk tolerance is a lot lower. Some of it is cultural. Some of it is actually legal structure. Like in France, if you fail, you are a failure for life. Like bankruptcy, just follows you around forever. Like you can't rent apartments and you can't it's like going to jail here. It just affects everything you apply for. So there are structural reasons in some countries why it just doesn't work as well. But to a large extent, America's full of criminals, right? We're full of people that escaped from other places and, crazy people who ran away from other safe countries. And so there's, I think, a cultural bias here towards taking risk. There's a regulatory framework that makes it very safe to take risk. I start C Corps all the time. They do really asinine shit. And when they fail, people can sue the C Corp. They can't sue me. It's awesome. So I think Europe has a long way to go. China is probably number two. Shanghai, last time I was there was during the Groupon craze. And I was talking about how there were 30 Groupon competitors in the US. There was a Groupon for wine and a Groupon for dogs and a Groupon for whatever. And I was meeting with the Renren CEO, which was like a social network in China. And he looks at me and he goes, 2,000 Groupon clones in China. And I was like, Jesus. Okay, maybe we're not, that good here. So, yeah, I think Europe has a ways to go. And unfortunately, a lot of the smart Europeans come here.
Yeah, up here.
You're back.
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, thank you for your time and coming. I wonder, so you have taken over AngelList, creating a huge level for you and your syndicates for AngelList, but at the same time, Naval is growing faster. So are you worried that you're losing some kind of leverage? And have you think about replicating the network effect that you have in Founders Club or GAST or your own?
Yeah. So it's actually the opposite. We were 8% of AngelList total dollar volume last year, and we were about 15% this quarter. So I'm actually worried about becoming too much of AngelList's overall money flow. And I think what they're doing is pretty good, right? And they, like a good marketplace, are not taxing it too much. And so I view them as really helpful. They help me collect money. They do all this legal work. The reason I never became a VC, I got asked to join a partnership at a VC fund in 2006. I got asked again in 2012. And my answer both times was the same, which is I would love to be a VC if I didn't hate lawyers and accountants and financial people. But other than that, it sounds great. So I depend on them for all the things I don't want to do. I think Funders Club has a different model. They want to be the VC. So they don't want to partner with me, and that's okay. They're going to do their own thing. And if there was another AngelList, I'd probably join that too. I mean, I'm talking to the one in Israel that, does their own thing. So You know, I think it's very complementary, and the way I actually describe it is that our now 18 funds are effectively an analogy to Fidelity or Vanguard. Like, we're building a mutual fund house with stock pickers in different sectors, in different geographies, in different stages. We have a late stage fund, we have a UK fund, we're working on the Israel fund, we got a security fund. So you, the investor, can pick what you want to invest in and deploy capital. And AngelList is the NASDAQ. They're the place where you trade the stocks. And I don't need to build NASDAQ to do what I do.
Going sideways, given your experience in eBay, would you be able to kind of talk a bit about what do you think eBay did right to become what they've become, and at the time where it wasn't really clear whether the model would work, and then not only it worked, but even now a lot of copycats arise. And also, since you were in charge of the business development, what type of companies did you seek to acquire to help eBay become what they've become? Was there a kind of strategy, or was it opportunistic? And how did you decide, no, this sounds like a good idea, but actually what eBay is totally different, and
Yep.
we don't want to acquire them?
So I'll keep it short because it's not entirely the topic for tonight, but eBay worked because we trusted people. Most, On Sale at the time was publicly traded, was bigger than us, and they had a warehouse. They just had a much higher cost structure. They assumed people were basically bad and that you needed to control everything, and that created a lot more cost. And because we were able to do it so much cheaper through this notion of trust and feedback and reputation, that was ultimately the innovation, was that you could let the few bad people in and you could afford to pay for their sins. And in exchange, a lot of good people had to do a lot less work and pay a lot less money. When I ran Corp Dev, we mainly bought eBays in other countries, so it was pretty boring. Like, we bought eBay France, and we invested in eBay China and stuff like that. And it was just sort of like, let's do more of this. So actually quite boring.
Hi, my name is Karan, and I have sort of a two-part question. One is, AngelList is still, it's not really an online fundraising platform as much as an online directory. A lot of the fundraising and the connections are still happening offline. Do you ever see this becoming a pure meritocracy where I put out all my data and people would just objectively look at it and come talk to us? Because still you're hunting for warm introductions, and as an outsider that makes it hard. Two, what's your process? Like, would you look at someone who just sent you an email, or is it just a waste of time for you just cluttering your inbox? Or what's your process basically to review non-warm introductions?
Yeah, so I think it's actually a fair point. AngelList is a great way to crowdsource money. It is really a cluttered directory of companies that's hard to often tell. And I know the AngelList guys looked at some of the data and tried to use it as a predictive tool to see if they could find the good startups, and their basic takeaway was it didn't work. If you're growing 40% month over month for a year, that data is pretty good, but you rarely see that. And so I think it's often subjective, and it's more than it is quantitative. And so the syndicate notion is really that they hire effectively a bunch of people like me to go do that work for them. We get probably 1,000 deals a month, like I was saying. People email me all the time, and it turns out a lot of people in this room and other rooms like this think it would be really cool to be a VC and to get to see a lot of decks and to learn what works. And so anyone who wants to can email me and join our volunteer partner group, and we have about 55 volunteers who do the initial screening on all the decks and turn them into sort of one-page summaries and extract the key metrics for us. And the key metrics in SaaS are very different than they are in Bitcoin, than they are in IoT. And so we have a team that'll, sort of look at the summaries and look for things that seem interesting. And that's very helpful at finding ones who have compelling metrics. And that ultimately is the democratization, right? If you can build something with good metrics, we will find you. If you're really smart and you have a crazy idea and it takes a long time to gestate, I don't have a good answer yet for how you fund that, other than some of the real traditional venture capitalists will take big bets on, rocket ships and electric cars, and there it's much less metrics, and it's very much like, I trust you, and I've worked with you, and 10 other people I know say you're amazing, and rocket ships, there could be a lot of money in that, right? So big market, sort of very strong team, tends to be the things that get the story deals done.
Cool. And a couple more questions, after which we're going to...
Okay, so I believe in trust and verify. So I'm wondering if you use any data analytics tools, social analytics tools, anything kind of like Mattermark, for example, to verify the results that people are reporting on their startup.
Yeah, we're not that smart yet. We've started looking at Mattermark, but haven't used it. On a lot of sites, we'll just use Google Analytics. We're like, let me log into your Google Analytics. And when they're like, no, it's super secret, I go, okay, I guess we're done. It's really not that impressive. But a lot of it is also just social trust. Like, I know you, I know him, you know him, he seems good, we don't do criminal background checks or whatever that we probably should. I got yelled at by some VC. He's like, you're not doing this right. Like, you should do background checks, and you need to do 10 customer calls, and you do it professionally. And I was like, dude, we're putting in like 200 grand. You're putting in like 5 million. It's different. Like, what am I going to find out? Like, most of these guys don't even have customers. So there's also a certain amount of, the venture industry has been poo-pooing AngelList, and so I go around talking about how the buggy whip manufacturers never like cars, but they'll eventually figure it out. I think there's going to be a new crop of VCs that come out of this that are very different. My partnership has 3 women. I don't know of another VC partnership that has 3 full partners who are women. We have more minorities. We have people who are weird. We don't have any finance guys. Some of the VC firms have trended towards that, hiring entrepreneurs and product people and engineers, but there's still an awful lot of, the 6 dorky white guys in blue jackets problem. I've actually pitched 6 white guys in blue jackets, many times. And I don't think that's healthy. And so this democratizes the leaders of who gets to decide about money. And so I'm more worried about that and sort of getting good people in the game than I am about the crooks are stealing my money, honestly, because, in my experience, 9 times out of 10, the money goes down the toilet anyway. I mean, honestly.
Roger? Sorry, I know that Roger has some questions.
Question from San Diego. As an investor, what is your opinion of a startup that builds complementary products to a larger company with a strategy of basically flipping it, such as TweetDeck to Twitter?
Yeah, we hate that. Well, and there's a bunch of arguments for it. Josh Koppelman at First Round has a great one, which is, it's just as hard to build a small startup as it is a big one. Why not do a big one? If your exit strategy is some politically conservative, risk-averse MBA and the M&A group at Twitter is going to buy me, that doesn't sound great. And the history of companies building on top of Facebook, building on top of Twitter, building on top of eBay is actually quite poor. These platforms tend to screw their partners most of the time. Not all the time, right? Facebook said we're not doing games. We're not going to build a game studio. But they tried to screw Quora, and they screwed over, what was the Zynga? Well, Zynga less so. Zynga, honestly, Mark's behavior was pretty bad, so it was kind of deserved. But what was the video one? Vidi. Vidi went like this on Facebook, literally. So I was an investor in Vidi. We invested at a $24 million valuation, and Facebook turned video on through Vidi and one other company in the feed. And literally, Vidi's traffic went straight up. I mean, vertical. And I get a call 30 days after I invested, and they said, hey, we got a term sheet. I'm like, wait, no, we just finished doing this. And they're like, no, we got another term sheet. Like, wait, we just gave you $6 million. And they're like, no, we got a $30 million term sheet. Like, in 30 days? So 60 days after I invest in Vidi, it's going like this. I mean, like, I'm talking double-digit daily growth, not yearly growth. And they raised money at 370 pre, up from 24. And, you know, I remember kind of sitting there going, ugh, just made 15 times my money in 60 days. Would it be inappropriate for me to call the CEO and say, like, I've been locked up for a long time here. Can I sell some? And I'm like, how would I feel as the entrepreneur? Yeah, kind of shitty. So I was like, yeah, I shouldn't do that. That was a huge mistake because Facebook then turned it off and it went literally to zero. Like overnight, and the company ended up selling for like $1.50. So I don't like building on platforms. I don't like building to sell. Nobody does. If you're going to do that, fund it yourself, fund it with your family and friends. There are a lot of great businesses that make $1, $5, $10 million a year in cash and should be run, you know, like sole proprietorships by owners who, you know, deeply enjoy what they do, and that's okay too. But that's not what crazy VC people want.
Oh, okay. We have to finish here, but why don't we give a big round of applause to Gil?